First, thank you so much for the invitation to participate here and present the Spanish results within the Adviclim project. And first, I would like to present more or less what is the Spanish situation in terms of viticulture, because it allows us to focus better on what we are doing here. And the reality is that in the past, and still in the present, but in many places we have changed. The vineyards, the viticulture, was slightly different to the current situations. We had, in many places, warm places with low rainfall, toward where the scenarios are forecasting could be the future situation, or not so future. We had vineyards adapted to those situations, and traditionally were grown under a situation of high temperatures, water scarcity, and, well, a different socioeconomic context. That's true, but the fact is that we had management systems and varieties adapted to that situation. But and in this case, to protect from the excessive insulation, so that pruning, trying to protect the new buds and so on. Even in warm and humid places, the pruning systems were adapted to avoid or to prevent wood diseases. That was the situation, and as I say, in many places in Spain, this is still the situation. But in many other places, we have changed. We have changed the varieties. Well-adapted varieties as Grenache, Garnacha, in our conditions, has been substituted by another varieties like Tempranillo, that nowadays in Rioja is the main, by far, variety, which is a variety much less adapted to a warm, hot, or dry context. So we have changed toward a war situation. Always we have changed the training systems. These training systems were well adapted to that warm situations. For harvesting, for example, well, they are much more expensive, but we have changed into that. Mechanized, but at what cost? Water need for transpiration, less protection from excessive sun, and so on. And even more, we have changed the places where the vineyards were grown. We have gone down in the valleys from the upper regions to the lower regions with more fertile soils and drier conditions, also in warmer regions. So, all in all, we have a situation in which we have made our vineyards more vulnerable to the situation. And that's not a future situation. This is a current situation. Here we are showing the climate indices shown before. And in the last 30 years, our current regions are warmer and drier, particularly during the day. So that this is not a future problem, this is a current problem. So, what are we doing? We are going back to the traditional varieties, better adapted to that situations. We are modifying the blends. For example, in our regions, there are an increase in the use of Graciano, a traditional variety, for increasing acidity that has been lost due to higher temperatures in the other cultivars. And we are considering moving the vineyards. And that's where our results frame into the project. Our pilot sites are placed in Spain, in the Rioja region, and we are using two plots, two vineyards, commercial vineyards. I am going to focus just in one of them. In Vergasa, La Rioja, an 80-hectare vineyard that belongs to Viñedos Barón de Ley, that has been planted thinking precisely on adapting to the new situation, trying to move the vineyard to a cooler place. higher altitudes, up to 900 meters, whereas most of our vineyards nowadays in that region are around 200, 300 meters above the sea level, so much, much higher. And well, not all the farm has been planted with vines. The higher slopes are still unplanted because, well, the winery is not so sure that vines could be effectively grown there, and they have focused on white varieties. So we are analyzing the climate effect at the vineyard scale. Ausejo, our other plot in the project, around 300 meters, is nowadays a warm place, consider all the effects, and Carbonera, the other place, in the lower altitudes, it's much cooler, and in the upper places is around 20–30% cooler than the other regions. We have placed, as in the other pilot site, a lot of temperature probes so that you can see here the current vineyards and the places around 900 meters that we are still proving with the thermometers looking at the effect. And the integration of this information provides differences in thermal accumulation. The lower places are much warmer than in the height. And when we integrate that information with the topography, as in other pilot sites, we can see that there are huge differences in the same 80 hectares plot in climate. The upper ranges are around 30–40% cooler, considering the growing season every year. In fact, if we relate the height of the sites within the vineyard with the thermal accumulation during the growing season, we can see, as in other cases, a very good relationship. But I want to indicate that here, for example, this point, S39, S42, are points at the same height, or this one at the same height, but with very remarkable differences in thermal accumulation. This is much warmer than the other. The differences due to differences in topography, particularly in the facing, so that the cooler regions, here the result expressed in terms of sun radiation accumulated during the growing cycle, the slopes facing north are receiving much less insolation. The insolation is still adequate to grow the grapes and to mature the grapes, but well, we are in as a result of this, we are in a much more favorable situation. So, as a preliminary result in this part, we can say, okay, we can obtain a result from moving the vineyard to a cool situation, but we don't need to go much or very far apart from our region. In our regions, playing with the height, playing with the slopes, and the orientation, depending on our objectives, we could find favorable places to grow the grapes within our needs. The last result, side result about also we are working with canopy management. And in our conditions, it's customarily used to trim the vines to reduce leaf area and to control vigor. In this case, we are aiming to delay with a much more intense trimming, delay variations, and to elongate the cycle, trying to compensate also for those higher temperatures and delay ripening. In those cases, we could think if by removing leaf area, if we could try to save water. But at least in our study conditions, this severe trimming you really contribute to this, but not to reduce water use. In very extreme situations with much higher temperatures, much higher exposure, there could be an improvement in plant water status, but in, let's say, normal circumstances, a severe trimming will contribute to this, but not to save water. The plant compensates, grows laterals, enhances the leaf area by other means. The leaves also work more. They are not so stressed, so that in some cases you could obtain even a slight increase in water use. And well, that's our part and our contribution. Again, thank you so much for the opportunity. And